So what if you could tell the truth to somebody in a way that they could hear it and they would actually thank you after you said it? That's the goal for me and for many of us. And I think that's a really beautiful way of distinguishing between the idea of serving versus pleasing. I love this subject because I think it's a really powerful, not only is it a powerful distinction, but it is a powerful distinction for people who lead others. In my opinion, in the work that I do, we're all a bunch of people pleasers, right? So, hi, I'm Allison. I'm a people pleaser. Anybody else? And so I'm going to talk today about we're going to talk about what is the difference between the two. And, I'll tell a few stories, okay? So what do I mean when I say serving versus pleasing? I have these 3 examples. The first one is you have a 4-year-old boy, and he's trying to zipper his coat, and he can't zipper it, and he can't zipper it, and he can't zipper it, and he's getting more and more and more frustrated. And I'm his mother, and I'm watching him get frustrated, and that usually means that I'm going to get a little frustrated, and so I zipper the coat for him. That's pleasing. That's what I would consider pleasing. Because I fixed the problem. I rescued him from his discomfort. I rescued myself from my discomfort because I don't like to watch him get upset. But I didn't really teach him how to zipper his coat in the long-term focus, or the goal is for him to be able to do it himself. So how I would serve him might be noticing him getting a little ramped up and saying, hey, buddy, why don't we take a breath? Or maybe I'll give him some tips on how to zipper it, or I'll show him doing my own. But I don't rescue him. I let him go through that discomfort of learning how to zipper his own coat. And I love that example because everybody can understand a 4-year-old zippering their coat. It gets a little bit more complicated when we're dealing with big people. So my second example, and this is the one that usually will divide the crowd. So I'm just going to start off right off the bat, right? I'm going to divide you guys. Some of you are going to agree with this and some of you won't. So I'm in a group of coaches. We're doing a mastermind, and there's 30 of us in a room. And one of the coaches, Daniel, was lamenting that he's struggling to enroll the kind of people that he wants to work with. And so the head coach said, okay, well, Daniel, stand up. Give us your pitch, man. So Daniel stands up. He gives his pitch. And the head coach says, okay, how do you think you did? Scale of 1 to 10. How did it land with everybody? And Daniel went, man, I think that was an 8. I felt really great. So the master coach looked at all of us and he said, okay, Daniel, permission to request everybody's feedback. And Daniel said, okay. So he looked at all of us and he said, okay, using your fingers, 1 through 10, how did it land? He had like 2s and 3s from all 29 of us. And you could see his shoulders drop. You could see his energy fall. And I was sitting next to Daniel. So he comes to sit down, and I see that he is super uncomfortable. And I put my hand on his shoulder. And the coach across the room said, don't do that. So I took my hand off. We continued to process with Daniel. And after we were all done, the master coach said, Allison, do you understand why that person told you to take your hand off of Daniel? No. And he said, because that was about you. That wasn't about him. That was a pleasing maneuver. That's a people pleaser thing to do. Oh, it's okay, buddy. And when I did that, I was doing that because I was uncomfortable, because I have empathy, and because he was uncomfortable, right? Like I could put myself in his shoes. And I did, I felt bad. And because I was having this discomfort, I wanted to stop it. And so I put my hand on his shoulder, and so then I could feel better about myself because I'm so nice. And what I actually did was that I interrupted his process. Yes, Daniel is uncomfortable. Yes, everybody just told him that he's running around the world thinking he's hitting people at an 8, and it's actually landing as a 2. And that is a bitter pill to swallow, yes? That's uncomfortable, yes? But if we let Daniel keep running around the world thinking he's an 8, that's not nice. And so to serve him, was to honor his ability to sit in that space, in that moment, and to swallow the bitter pill, marinate in it a little bit, and fix it himself. All right, I'm going to ask, does anybody agree with that? Does anybody think that it was not a nice thing to do to put my hand on his shoulder? Julie Kiefer. I know you have a hard time with this. Yeah, she does. She does. It's hard. It's okay. I know. And it feels so right, you know? And I love speaking to women because how much of this are we conditioned to do? Like we nurture and caretake and we're like these soft, wonderful, like, it's all okay people. And that is also a lovely and wonderful thing, and that times that's appropriate and times it's not, and it's messy. I like that example because it's messy. There's no black or white, and you can't always do it, and sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes it's not, and you don't really know until after it's over, and you're like, well, I wish I could have, or yeah, I knocked it out of the park that time. The last example I like because I know the difference between, I think I know, I said that really authoritarian, okay. I think I know the difference between serving versus pleasing. And even though I try and aim to serve as often as I can, I still make mistakes. So I have a client, he's a CEO, and he owns a lot of companies. And I've been working with him for, 4 months. And one of his business lines is having a lot of problems. So he asked me to work with the leadership team there. I said, awesome. I'm super excited about that job too. I was like, yes, because I love what they're doing. And I would love to help. Wrote up the proposal, sent it out to him, called me. He's like, I love everything in here. This is great. Let's get going. Oh, I have a problem. I can't make your down payment up front. It'll take me a couple months. And before I even could think about it, I went, oh, it's fine. High pitched, right? Like it's fine. And so that was my people pleaser, right? I didn't want to have an uncomfortable conversation with him about money. I didn't want to seem inflexible. I wanted him to like me. I didn't want to lose the job. Short term, immediate, like, okay, no, we're not going to talk about it. It's fine. And then, but it's not fine, right? And so even today, as I talk about it, I'm like, oh, how could I have served him in that moment? Because of course this is a pattern for him. I've been with him for 4 months. I know this is a pattern. He has a cash flow issue. And so I could have served him in that moment, right? There's 1,000 things I could have done. But I'm human and a goofed. So live and learn. Okay, so as I started to embrace this whole world of serving, what I noticed happening and what I'm noticing in my clients as they start to embrace that too, are these things. They can listen more powerfully to others. They can have others feel seen and understood, feel heard. This is really powerful if you have teenagers. This is let go of the need to be liked. Anybody really like to be liked, right? Letting it go is so hard. It's a big one for me. Handle difficult conversations with confidence. I no longer dread having tough conversations with people. And that is a blessing for me. So not only do I not dread it, but now I know how to do it. So now I'm like, bring it on. I'm totally confident in almost all situations. So it's been a huge relief. Receive respect and trust. So for those of us that really want to be liked, I think this is better than being liked, being respected and trusted. There are times that I will tell a client something that's really uncomfortable, and in that moment, they do not like me. But they keep coming back because they trust me. And they know I'm going to say the thing. First of all, I'm going to say the thing. And I'm going to say it from a place where I'm looking out for their best interests. Unless we're talking about money, and then I guess I can't do that. And then the last is to get to better solutions. If we're all worried about what people are going to think of us, if I'm trying to impress you guys and you guys are trying to impress me, we're all wearing these masks, we're not going to get to the best solutions. So being able to just decide that we may not like each other at the end of the day, but we're going to get to the bottom of something, very powerful. Okay, so I want to share something I call the Velasquez principle. And this is another thing that I think I've learned as I've delved into this world of serving versus pleasing. So Peter Velasquez was a boy that I knew in 8th grade. He was a Latino fella. He had like a mustache in the 8th grade. And he was a man. And I just looked up to him. I was so impressed by this guy. So we're hanging out one day and Peter comes up to me and I'm off the side without, I'm not near a bunch of people, and he says, "Elsa, I just want you to know you have a blackhead in your ear." Right? And I'm like, first of all, it's Peter Velasquez with the man stash. And I was like, come on, right now? However, I was super thankful. I was embarrassed. I was like a little uncomfortable, but I was like, thank you. Because I don't know what my blind spots are, and I can't see in my ear. I have I'm in 8th grade, I barely shower right. And then I got a thing growing out of my ear and I didn't know. And he was the guy that came and told me the thing. And when he said it in a way that I knew that he was looking out for my best interest. He didn't say it in front of a bunch of people. He didn't put it on social media. Although I'm so old, that's so cute because there wasn't social media. So I attribute the Velasquez principle. I say, I think what I'm learning is that we actually want to hear the truth. Most of us are actually ready to hear the truth. So maybe it is appropriate to say the thing, as long as say the thing when it's appropriate and you say it in a way that people can hear it and you say it with your heart, looking out for their heart and all of that. Okay. All right, so how did I get here? I see things differently. In a group, in a room like this, I usually am not somebody that thinks like everybody else. And that is something that I hid for most of my life. I don't think that anybody ever said to me, like, you better think like everybody else or you're never going to fit in. But I learned it from somewhere. And I do remember the moment when I decided I wasn't going to do that thing anymore. And I was in high school. It was an English class, and we had read a poem. And we were supposed to write a paper about what we had read. And I found this poem fascinating and interesting. It was a new theory I'd never heard before. And so I wrote about how I thought about that poem. Interesting and fascinating. And I came to school next day, turned in our papers, and the teacher turned around the class and said, "Wasn't that the most depressing and dark poem you ever read?" There was that moment where I was like, oh. And then I looked around, and to me, in my world, all of the kids were nodding in agreement with the teacher. And that's where I was like, okay, number one, I must be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm exposed right now. And I don't want anybody to know that I thought that was interesting and fascinating, right? I wanted like the disappear button, whatever that is. So I gravitated towards math and science because I could get the same answer. This is how I ended up going in engineering in the first place. I gravitated towards math and science because I could get the same answer. 1 and 1 is 2, and E equals MC squared. And I felt like I fit there because I could do that thing. And I was never exposed, unless, of course, I got a wrong answer there, but I tried not to. Went all the way through college, got an engineering degree, ended up in the oil industry right out of college. So now I'm in man world. So not only do I hide all the things that I think, but I get to hide my femininity as well. I didn't have to, but I want to fit in, so I did. And then I did that for 20 years. And I don't know the moment that it happened, but it was like a slow trickle of thoughts and feelings that I wonder if this is what I want to be doing. And I'm now the vice president of this firm. I am being groomed to take over as president when the current president retires. And if this isn't the thing, oh my gosh, this is how I was going to do it. So I did a lot of soul searching, and I found the world of coaching through, that's a whole nother story. And I went back, I went to a coach training program. I finished that. I got certified. I got credentialed. I loved it. And I was like, okay, if I could love it, then I wonder what that would be like. Because engineering was always fine. That was the thing. It's like, I didn't hate it. It's just fine. It's a nice way to make a living. I was really good at it. I'm actually an expert in the world in this small little niche technology, but it wasn't the thing. So I decided to go for it, and I resigned from my consulting firm. And after 2 years of working in the coaching industry and building this business, I had learned a ton. I went up this super steep learning curve. And when I kind of plateaued out a little bit, I was like, I wish everybody could know all the things that I just found out, right? Do you ever learn something, you're like, how come no one told me? And I kept, that's what I did for 2 years. I wish someone had said something. So I wrote a book. This is the book that I wanted to be this is all the stuff I've ever learned in the last 2 years I want everybody to know. Okay, so back to the book. 14 chapters, insights, discoveries, distinctions, case studies of clients, personal stories, self-reflections. And after I had written the book, I went, oh my gosh, I think I just wrote a book on leadership. I didn't, that's not what I set out to do. I was just so excited about the stuff that I knew, I put it all in the book. And then when I was done with the book, I made another discovery that this was a book on leadership. And I thought, okay, if it's a book on leadership, then I wonder what all of these people have in common when they go from being successful, because my people are all really successful, to becoming even more successful. So I went back through everything and I tried to tease out those attributes, those characteristics of those people, that when they were really strong in all of them, it led to even more success. Here's another thing I think I learned, okay? These are the 7 attributes that I pulled out. Curiosity, authenticity, mindset, possibility, the distinction between serving versus pleasing, experiential, and trust. And so I can't talk about all of them today. I only have 90 minutes. So today I'm going to go deep into the serving versus pleasing. And then I'm going to do a little experiential at the end. Okay? All right, so let's get into serving versus pleasing. Trying to define it, it's hard to define human behavior, but I think this is kind of where I land when I think about pleasing. Pleasing's focused on me. When my 4-year-old can't zipper his coat and we are running late and he's becoming frustrated and I'm becoming frustrated, I just zipper the damn thing because I just want to get going, right? So that's focused on me. It's dependent on external validation. I said, it's fine to my client because I want him to like me, I want him to think I'm flexible, all of those things, right? Made me feel better. When I zip the coat, it's over. When I say it's fine, I can hang up. And it may or may not. I don't know. If it makes the other person feel better, it doesn't really matter. Serving, on the other hand, is focused on them. If my 4-year-old is ever going to learn how to zipper his coat, then by all means, I cannot do it for him. It's independent. Does not matter. I have to tell myself it's okay if somebody doesn't like me. If I say you have to pay my down payment because it's a policy that I have, the reason I have it is for I know that's how it works better and that's why I have it as a policy. And I don't care if you like it or not, that's serving somebody. Discomfort, right? Probably doesn't make anybody feel better in the moment. But it leads to a favorable outcome over time. Okay, so I want to share a story about somebody that I met in a support group for families and friends of alcoholics. And she was there because her husband was an alcoholic. And her life was a pretty big mess. And she was there because if you take this is my theory, if you take people pleasing to the extreme, you're enabler, codependent, right? You're over here in this world. And that's really where she was. And she had a big mess on her hands. And as a result of being a part of that group, she committed that she was no longer going to be the first person to volunteer, the first person to help, the first person to fix, because that's what she had become over time. So she's made the commitment. She's at church, and a guy across the aisle from her collapses. And she's a registered nurse. So she's like, are you kidding me? And she said it felt like forever. She sat there trying desperately not to be the first person, because she is the one in the room that is medically capable and trained to help this person. And she's like, I feel like I'm being tested. So she doesn't react first. Sure enough, 4 other people come. They take care of the guy, get him in an ambulance, and they take him off. And she said that was such a powerful example for her, because it proved to her, and it resonates with me, that number one, you're not the only person. She's not the only person in the world that can help. Even when she's a nurse and somebody collapses, other people can help, and they did a great job. And I like this example because it helps me to step back sometimes and pause before I rush in. Even if I'm the most capable person of doing whatever it is, that doesn't necessarily mean I should do it. So I will invite you to think about pausing. If you're a people pleaser, if you jump in first, if you're always volunteering, to step back and go, okay, I wonder if this is the best use of my time. Who else could possibly do this?